The theme of Into the Spider-Verse is anyone can wear the mask.
Anyone can wear the mask.
He always said it could have been anyone behind the mask.
Everyone is powerful. Everyone's necessary.
Anyone can wear the mask.
We're all counting on you.
They're counting on me. Probably not you specifically. I think it's a metaphor.
The film explores Peter Parker's iconic theme of with great power comes great responsibility, but through the perspective of Miles Morales, adding diversity to the Spider-Man mythos and emphasizing that anyone can make the responsible choices to become the most heroic version of themselves. By analyzing Miles' arc, we can see how the plot of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse informs both the hero's internal growth and the birth of a new Spider-Man. This is Behind the Arc. Miles Morales' arc resembles Christopher Vogler's story structure from his book, The Writer's Journey: Mythic Structure for Writers. This structure is a 12-step distillation of Joseph Campbell's classic hero's journey. By analyzing the choices that Miles makes at different points of the story, we can see how he actively moves himself and the plot towards these crucial story beats, while internally advancing towards the thematic resonance of his arc. Let's get started. The movie opens with a montage of Peter Parker's greatest hits, establishing the expectations and sense of responsibility that's synonymous with the world that Miles is about to encounter. We then meet Miles in his everyday, ordinary world, where he is carefree and avoids responsibility. Pretty much the opposite of Peter Parker. We learn about Miles' character by analyzing his choices. In his book Story, Robert McKee tells us that the only way we come to know characters in depth is through their choices under pressure. In the ordinary world, Miles chooses to draw stickers instead of pack for school, he chooses to vandalize street signs instead of get a ride with his dad, he chooses to fail his test in an attempt to get kicked out of school instead of get a perfect score, and he chooses to sneak out of school to go see Uncle Aaron instead of write his essay. Page 13 of the script even alludes to his carefree choice, describing Miles in this moment as once again the carefree kid he yearns to be. He also chooses to paint with Aaron instead of go back and do his homework. When Miles is faced with choices in his ordinary world, he chooses to act carelessly rather than responsibly. The pressure that Miles feels from those around him is also prevalent at this point of the story. In an interview with Fandango, Spider-Verse producer and writer Phil Lord said, "Well, to me, it sort of all circles around to his family, and being able to portray a very grounded family with a mother and father who both want the best for their son, but go about it in different ways. Also an uncle that loves him, but is encouraging him to go down a different path. It really speaks to Miles trying to figure out who he is, who he's going to be, what kind of person he's going to become." The difference between Miles' carefree aspirations learned from his uncle and the mature young adult his parents want him to be can be found in the mirroring shots of him at both schools. First, we see Miles greet his old friends in front of the school that he wants to attend, and he feels a sense of belonging. Then Miles tries to interact with the students at his new school the same way and gets ignored. This sequence is described on page 10 of the script with, in a sea of blue, Miles awkwardly tries to interact like he was on his street, but everyone's so focused. One of the students actually does say something to Miles here.
Hey.
Yeah?
His shoe's untied.
Yeah, I'm aware. It's a choice.
Miles leaving his shoe untied is a choice, a rebellious act of carelessness in an environment that is fit and proper. This will come into play again later on. Despite his carefree nature and lack of direction, Miles does yearn for purpose and belonging. He does want to find out who he's destined to become, but he hasn't had a reason to act with the responsibility necessary to grow. He does want to fill in his empty silhouette with the vibrant colors of great expectations. Luckily for him, he is one spider bite away from making this happen. Yeah, no, that is a very different spider from the one that I was thinking of. Yeah, let's just move on.
I thought I was the only one. You're like me.
I don't want to be.
I don't think you have a choice, kiddo.
Miles getting bit by the spider disrupts the comfort of his ordinary world. After being bitten, he goes back to school where he faces the consequences for his carefree actions from the night before, propelling him towards a path of responsibility.
Did you know your shoes are untied?
This is a onesie, so I don't really have to worry about it.
Miles is later presented with a challenge, and the stakes involved if the challenge is rejected.
If he turns the machine on again, everything you know will disappear. Your family, everyone. Promise me you'll do this.
I promise.
This scene also reminds us that you don't immediately become Spider-Man after getting the powers. Miles watches in awe as Peter effortlessly maneuvers with a confidence and self-assurance that is so foreign to Miles.
How does he do that?
The sequence in which Miles receives his call to adventure also gives a glimpse of how his carefree instincts initially react to this adventure. At one point, he's faced with a choice to help Peter or hide.
I should go up there and help him. Who am I kidding? I should not do that.
Miles chooses to hide, and Peter ultimately dies because of it. Miles shoulders the blame for Peter's death, giving him motivation to stop Kingpin while presenting the life or death stakes for the remainder of the film.
Get rid of the body.
Immediately after receiving his call to adventure, Miles retreats to his home, or the safe haven of his ordinary world. He even attempts to get out of the situation completely and remove all personal stakes associated with his journey.
Mom, do you ever think about moving out of Brooklyn?
Our family doesn't run from things, Miles.
Miles then hears the theme of the film stated by MJ.
He always said it could have been anyone behind the mask. He was just the kid who happened to get bit.
He makes the choice to be Spider-Man. Although he has taken the first step, he is far from being Spider-Man, which is pointed out on page 40 of the script. Miles looks at the TVs, his reflection appearing between photos of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Despite taking the first step, he quickly loses faith in himself when he trips on his untied shoelace, causing him to fall and break the goober.
Hey,
Yeah?
his shoe's untied.
Yeah, I'm aware. It's a choice.
You know your shoes are tied.
The shoelace represents Miles' carefree instincts, which he is still holding onto, and it costs him early into his adventure. Miles is still not willing to make necessary changes, and he has to eventually drop his carelessness if he wants to complete his journey to become Spider-Man. Miles refuses the call upon breaking the goober, admitting his defeat at Peter's grave.
I'm sorry, Mr. Parker.
Just as Miles loses all hope, he meets the alternate Peter Parker, who becomes his mentor. Upon meeting Peter, Miles is confronted by the police and is immediately thrust into a situation where he has to act. Page 49 of the script says, Miles realizes he has to handle this somehow. Miles puppets Peter's body, moving Peter's legs and arms to parkour over cars, push off signs, anything to survive. Although Miles' maneuvers are clumsy, it's the first instance where he proves to himself that he is capable of being Spider-Man, gaining the confidence needed to convince his new mentor to teach him.
I don't have a choice. Kingpin's got a super collider. He's trying to kill me.
Miles is ready to cross the threshold after using his power to get away from the police and meeting the new Peter Parker. However, he needs to convince Peter to cross the threshold with him. Miles is convinced that he needs Peter's guidance to become Spider-Man. The difference in their skill set is evident in this scene, described on page 53 as a vertical walk and talk, but one of the participants hasn't learned how to walk. Peter, who seems burdened with guilt and responsibility, accepts, and we have officially left the ordinary world and entered the special world. Miles' first true tests with the dangers of the special world come at the Alchemax lab. Here, he meets villains, receives training from his mentor, and makes allies. This part of the movie also tells us a lot about how Miles' arc is progressing as he enters the special world. When Miles sees Kingpin, he crouches behind the rock, mirroring his reaction to the villains earlier in the movie. But now, after his carefree nature got the original Spider-Man killed, he makes the responsible choice to help Peter.
I can't sit there and just let Spider-Man die without doing anything about it. I'm not doing that again.
The test allies enemies portion of Miles' arc continues in the spider shed. Here, Miles looks up at the spider suit, with page 81 of the script saying, Miles is looking at the costumes, his reflection still a bit off-center. This mirrors the shot from earlier, indicating that he still isn't ready to don the mask. Miles also joins forces with a hero team in the shed, but they all question Miles' commitment and his chance of succeeding. After leaving the team feeling defeated, Miles heads to Uncle Aaron's apartment and writes a letter where he reflects on everything that's happened. He also expresses his nerves for what is about to happen. Another key moment in the approach to the inmost cave is when Miles ignores his dad's phone call. This shows that Miles' actions have reverted back to the carefree nature of his ordinary world. The ordeal happens when it's revealed that Uncle Aaron is the Prowler. This crushes Miles for a couple reasons. First, Aaron represented the carefree life that Miles naturally leaned towards. Miles could have become Aaron if he kept going down his path of carelessness, and he just discovered that Aaron defies everything that he now believes in. The reveal of Aaron as the Prowler represents the death of Miles' carefree ideology. The other reason why this reveal works so well is because of the personal connection between Miles and Aaron. In his collection of work called Poetics, Aristotle refers to this beat of storytelling as a combination of reversal of the situation and recognition. Aristotle defines reversal of the situation as a change by which the action veers round to its opposite, subject always to our rule of probability or necessity. He then defines recognition as a change from ignorance to knowledge, producing love or hate between persons destined by the poet for good or bad fortune. Aristotle cites the reveal of Oedipus's mother as an example, where reversal of the situation and recognition powerfully coincide with one another. He goes on to say, but the recognition which is most intimately connected with the plot and action is, as we have said, the recognition of persons. This recognition, combined with reversal, will produce either pity or fear, and actions producing these effects are those which, by our definition, tragedy represents. Upon learning about Aaron, Miles is then put in a scenario where he must face his uncle. By confronting Aaron, Miles is also confronting his greatest internal fear. Aaron represents the consequences of living a carefree life that lacks responsibility. The stakes of living a life without responsibility is driven home again when Aaron is killed for finally doing the right thing, facing the consequences for a lifestyle in which there is no turning back from.
You're the best of all of us, Mom. You're on your way. Just keep going.
Seeking revenge, Miles tries to convince Peter that he's ready to take on the Super Collider. This sequence is described on page 100 of the script in the following way. Peter does a combo move, nearly knocking Miles to the ground if Peter wasn't there to catch him. Miles, hang down, held up by Peter. This description portrays Miles' progress of becoming Spider-Man. Up until now, he has been held up by Peter. Miles has to take a chance on himself in order to truly become Spider-Man.
When will I know I'm ready?
You won't. It's a leap of faith. That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
Having survived death, the death of his uncle, and his greatest fear of once again not reaching his full potential, Miles finds himself alone, vulnerable, and feeling like a failure. At that moment, his dad shows up and guides him towards his reward.
I see this spark in you. It's amazing. It's why I push you, but it's yours. Whatever you choose to do with it, you'll be great.
For the first time, Miles hears what he truly needs to. The spark is his. Page 102 of the script says, using this memory is how he's learning to control his powers. He's in control.
Yeah.
With full control of his powers, Miles recommits to the journey by taking his leap of faith,
That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
becoming Spider-Man and heading to the Collider. In this sequence, Miles' reflection finally lines up with the mask, indicating that he's ready to be Spider-Man. When Miles jumps, there's a quick shot where the camera is upside down as he's falling. This quick shot is described on page 103 of the script. The camera is upside down. Miles isn't falling through frame, he's rising. Miles maneuvers his way through New York by thwipping and running, a beautiful combination of both Spider-Man's signature and his own style. He is becoming his own person. Also, this shot is a callback to this shot. And Miles' shoes are tied. He's responsible, he's in control of his powers, he's Spider-Man. In order to truly get back to the ordinary world, Miles must do what he has set out to do, send the other Spider people back to their universes and shut down the Collider. There are many callbacks in this scene, enforcing the idea that at this point in the story, the main character must be able to do things that he could not do in the first act, showing true thematic growth. Miles thwips up to the button in a sequence described on page 115 of the script as on Miles as he heads to the panel, doing his own version of Blonde Peter's swing, crawl, flip to the panel. There's another callback here.
Don't wash the mouth. Wash the hands.
Here's lesson number 1, kid. Don't watch the mouth. Watch the hand.
And finally this one. Page 119 of the script says Miles drop kicks Peter and holds him suspended over the portal. It looks exactly like when Peter challenged Miles in his dorm room before tying him up. Miles' performance as Spider-Man in this scene reinforces the theme that anyone can wear the mask.
Not bad, kid.
Miles uses everything that he's learned to take on Kingpin. Miles sees his dad and uses the memory from his dorm room to once again control his powers. The significance of Miles using the memory is also an idea expressed by Aristotle in Poetics. When discussing the different types of recognition, again defined as a change from ignorance to knowledge, Aristotle says the third kind depends on memory when the sight of some object awakens a feeling. The sight of his dad awakens his memory and gives Miles the strength he needs to finish off Kingpin.
You ever hear the shoulder touch?
What? Hey.
Returning to the ordinary world as Spider-Man, Miles has grown to become the best version of himself, being responsible without losing the giddy creativity that makes him feel alive. This is beautifully expressed on page 127 of the script. Miles swings, flips, and runs through the city. He webs a train as leverage to catapult himself through the air. He looks great. It's beautiful and so specific to Miles. Miles has completed his journey by finding purpose, making responsible choices, and proving that anyone can wear the mask.